Okay, so in the last video I talked about the supply and demand forces in the gold market, but today I want to talk about speculative forces in the gold market. Okay, so let's start. So, speculators are agents in the market who focus solely on price fluctuations, so they don't care about the news or supply demand forces, because they're just interested in making a quick buck. They're focused on short term and medium term gains rather than long term, and they don't have any stake in that asset. Now, that's like the most important bit, because if you don't have a stake in the asset that you are speculating in, what does that mean? Well, it means that speculators, they don't get to experience the market failure, the problems, the risks, the negative consequences that they just caused in the market. Now, these negative consequences are borne by other agents in the market. This, of course, leads to this moral hazard concept in economics, which basically says that individuals have incentives to alter their behavior when the risk when their risk or bad decision making is borne by others. And moral hazard is one of the things that causes market failure. So this is a crucial thing to understand. Um, so because of that fact, a large amount of speculators um, have a large amount of market power as well. So speculators can actually drive the market whichever direction they want, which means they can distort real organic supply and demand forces when it comes to price discovery, and plus they can also manipulate markets. Now, on the first point, how do they actually distort the demand forces? Um, how do they manipulate markets? I will explain more of that using this example below. But but before that, I want to talk about why they are able to drive the market. So, although this depends on how big the speculator is, because the speculators could be wealthy people with deep pockets. It could be large financial institutions with deep pockets as well. So these are really big agents in the market with a lot of resources. And smaller agents, of course, they're unable to do this. However, if you aggregate all of their positions, and if their positions are the same, they can influence the price somewhat, and even cause the big agents, the big speculators, to change their stance as well. But if you take their positions individually, they are unlikely to have much of an effect, since their positions are very small compared to the so-called whales. So the reason why speculators can drive the market whichever direction they want is because they can place many orders, but not only that, they can place very large amount of orders as well. So both the size and the quantity of the positions are large. So the other agents in the market have no chance in in price discovery, really. So now I'm gonna talk about the first point about the distortion. So how do they distort real supply and demand forces and prevent price discovery? Well, if you remember from the previous video, the plans of buyers and sellers aligned at P2, which was our equilibrium price, but of course that's without the influence of speculators. If we take their influence into account, then this synchronicity between the buyers and sellers will be disturbed because they, the speculators, can just place orders or contracts that go against the interest of one of the agents and sometimes even both agents and profit from it. And the losses will be borne by the other agents or both. So speculators can actually create a de facto price ceiling and price floor in the market. So if you remember the diagram before, it looked like this, right? So the middle was the equilibrium price, which was P2. So basically, speculators can create a price ceiling and price floor in the market. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of power because they can basically dictate what the price of gold will be regardless of supply and demand forces. And by price floor, I mean that if the speculators want to keep the price low at P1, then then they will be able to do so. If they want to keep the price at P3, they can do so. It doesn't matter if the agents want it at P2. If if the speculators want it at P3, they will just get it done, and it's gonna cause a lot of market instability. It's gonna prevent agents from ever accomplishing or satisfying their self-interest. So it's a huge problem, and when it comes to manipulation of the market, the first thing that comes to my mind is the JP Morgan traders who were caught on the 10th of August this year. They were caught placing spoof orders in the gold market, and they were manipulating the market for many years, from 2008 to 2016. Essentially, they were placing lots of spoof orders in the market, which are inauthentic orders. They are quickly placed and then cancelled in order to create a false impression of high demand or supply in the market. So what happens is this. So let's imagine this scenario. Let's say some negative news about the economy is broadcasted on TV. This then creates uncertainty low business confidence, stocks plummeting, all of that. And of course, we know how inversely related gold is to stocks. But anyways, so at that point, the organic demand for gold will be gradually picking up, right? So the price will increase as the stocks are decreasing. And gradually, more and more buy orders are placed in the market. So that's obviously going to cause the price of gold to gradually pick up as well. So everything seems fine so far, right? But in comes the spoofers. So they too place many large buy orders that are fake, which create the impression that the market is about to go on a huge rally. And other real traders, other real agents get in the action as well, thinking, oh, there is a opportunity to make a lot of money here, right? But then these spoofers place many and large and real sell orders this time around, and these orders outnumber the buy orders. So this causes the gold price to drop, and as a result, all of the real buyers in the market lose money, while these spoofers make huge amounts of money by profiting from all these people's losses, right? So I mean, essentially the whole thing is like a robbery, really. It's like they're just being a parasite in the market. I mean, it's a harsh word, but it's true. Um, so, what does that all mean, though? It just means that essentially, even though the agents in the market had the correct choice or position, they end up being the that very correct decision still ends up being the wrong choice because of speculators, and we can see that in the example below as well. Um, and also it shows that speculative forces, they outmuscle natural supply and demand forces most of the time. That's what it all means. So if you look at the example below, so what should happen versus what actually happens, right? So in this example, the price of gold is moving up and down. It's normal price action. Then, so this is day one. Then day two, uh, some high inflation figures are released in the second quarter, let's say, and then demand for gold increases, right? Because agents in the market, they want to protect themselves against inflation. They want to they want to protect themselves against other risks, geopolitical, economic, right? So the demand is going up, and then the price eventually surges up until P3. On day 3, we get P3, right? So very simple model, and this is what should happen. And of course, this green line is pretty much representing the organic supply and demand forces. However, what actually happens is this. So high inflation figures are released, and in knowing this, the demand is going up, right? So the speculators know that demand is going to go up because of this news. So what they do is speculators put a large amount of short positions to make the bulls lose, and thereby generating profit. So so when the price should have been P3, the price ended up being P1.5, let's say, because these guys, using their market power, they managed to um, just cause the price to go to the completely opposite direction. So this is what I mean when I mentioned previously, when even though the agents in the market have the correct position, they're doing the right thing, they're following the right metrics and acting accordingly, but still, because of the speculators, the price ended up being too low. Right, so the key takeaway from this video is that speculators can outmuscle organic and organic supply and demand forces, which obviously distorts the price, distorts the market, which means that you often have to take contrarian positions. So when every metric and market condition states that the market is about to boom, instead of buying gold, you need to start thinking about selling gold. But of course, there is a timing to it. You want to sell the moment you see large sell orders in the market. The way you can see that is through the volume indicator, also the L-Day Ray Bull and Bear Power, which sort of looked like this. Okay, so basically, the higher the value of bull power, which is the red one, the stronger the bulls are, so the price is about to increase, and the falling bull power shows that the bulls are getting weaker, and this value can also go negative. And bear power values are typically negative, and the lower the value, the stronger the bears are. If the bear power goes positive, that indicates that the bears are completely out of control. So that's one way to see it. Another way to see it is the gold SOT traders report. Okay, so if you take a look at managed money, non-commercial managed money, that's pretty much, and also the orange, like that's pretty much the speculators doing stuff, because you can see how the price is so linked with the blue line here, with the managed money. So yeah, this is one of the few ways we can sort of gauge their influence in the market. It's not perfect, but normally it's like really hard to detect what they're doing. But these are the few ways we can see what they're doing.